You know, we had a rather distinct opportunity that kind of came upon us just in the past couple of days. And when James was named the executive director, the 21st executive director of TxDOT, we said, hey, why don't we take a couple minutes and introduce him formally to the audience at the forum. We figured we had about 1,000, 1,100 people who all kind of bleed transportation. And James, who has been with TxDOT for about 30 years, obviously knows a bit about transportation as well. So we thought we would sit down and just have a kind of a conversation, informal, just up here to kind of introduce James to you all, those of you who don't know him, and just kind of have a little bit of a get-to-know-you session. So thank you for your indulgence. So James, welcome. Congratulations. Happy New Year. So as the new TxDOT executive director, yet as I've just mentioned, a very seasoned TxDOT veteran, what do you see as your top 2 or 3 priorities in leading the department that are going to be so vital to what Senator Corden mentioned in his video about the continued economic growth of the state and such?
Well, first, I'm not sure I can really limit them to 2 or 3, and we heard some of them in Chairman Lewis's remarks, but I think the most important one is to make sure that the department is positioned and prepared to put to work not only our existing funding streams, but the new funding streams that the people of Texas have put into our hands. And that includes some of the things that Chairman Lewis talked about, making sure that our resources, being our budget dollars and our FTEs, are put in the right position, put in the highest and best use to make sure that we can deliver on the projects that the people are expecting us to deliver on. And as we go about delivering those projects, the second thing I hope that we look at with our partners is, are there ways for us to expedite the ultimate delivery of those projects? And that may be in any of the phases of construction. Maybe it's in design, maybe it's in acquiring the right-of-way, or maybe it's in the actual construction of the project. And because I guess it's kind of a reverse hair club for men. I'm not only an employee, I'm a customer. And so we all are commuters around the state, and we experience the frustration that other people do when seemingly projects may take a while. There's obvious reasons and needs for the improvements to take a while, but can we look at, and are there ways to get those improvements done as quickly as possible so we can get in and then get out of the way of the drivers every day so they can have an easier commute to wherever they're going. So I want us to look for opportunities there, working with our stakeholders. Part of that as well is hopefully we can maximize utilization of the existing infrastructure that's out there. Again, as a customer, we probably all experience certain areas in our commute in our hometowns where we wonder, well, why doesn't TxDOT do X, Y, Z, or seems like it would make it a lot easier. And so I hope we create a environment where that communication, that discussion can go on, and the department can look, and maybe there's some quick fixes. For those of you who live here in Austin, the example I think of is Loop 360. Of course, it ought to be Loop 180 because it's only half a loop. But anyway, sorry, it's a numbers joke. As many of you know, it's 2-lane, each direction, divided with stoplights. I find myself driving the road from time to time, and it's 55, 60 miles per hour speed limit in some cases, and the left and right turn lanes at times were short. And so what happened is people were slowing down in the main lanes before they could go about their business, which is just slowing everybody else up. So our Austin district took the initiative, and because of the physical characteristics of 360, they were able to do it, go in and extend those turn lanes so people that are going to make the turn can get out of the main lane sooner, start slowing down, and let the through traffic go through. And is it a life-changing moment? Maybe not, But I've noticed a difference driving on it. The traffic is flowing through better, and it's not a huge construction project, but I think it brings a lot of benefit, and I think there may be other opportunities across the state, and I hope we look for those. And I think through utilization of technology, we can help that traffic flow as well.
So essentially kind of looking for some low-hanging fruit to increase, to enable a better customer experience.
Yeah, and speaking of customers, I really hope we have a way or different ways to improve the communication with our customers. I think we're in a unique position. So most of the time when you think of a customer, it's in a business relationship or perhaps even in government. I think of Department of Motor Vehicles. They have a one-to-one discussion either through the mail or in person with their customers. Most days we don't talk to our customers. They use our roadway, our transportation network, but there's not an open and direct line of communication. And I want to look for opportunities, whether it's through our public meetings and increasing public participation in those, through the internet, again using technology, ways for us to break down any of those barriers and to open those lines of communication with our customers.
Very good. So you were the department's first CFO ever, and you, in that role, saw numerous successes over the years and in your tenure. How do you see a transition happening from that position to now having this bigger, more global view of leading the entire department?
I think one of the challenges I'm aware of is the old saying of people changing offices but not changing jobs. And so I'm aware of that I'm no longer the CFO, but I did enjoy serving as the CFO. It was pretty good. Pretty good. Sorry for those of you I've watched way too much Curb Your Enthusiasm over the last 2 weeks, but anyway. But as CFO, most of my time, the daily work, was within a 2 to 3 block area of 11th and Congress, Greer Building or the Capitol. And when I did travel, it was primarily to DC or to New York. So I think one of the things I'm looking forward to as CFO is traveling more in-state, getting out to the districts and our local partners. It's been 24 years since I worked in a district at TxDOT, and so I'm a big believer in perspective, in needing to get outside of the Greer Building, because where transportation happens is outside of the Greer Building, and where the frontline work is being done is at the district level. And so I want to visit with our districts, understand what concerns or impediments they may be experiencing on a daily basis, and then work with the TxDOT team to see, are there ways that we can maybe remove some of those impediments? Obviously keeping in mind that we operate within state law, federal regulations, but there may be opportunities that we can streamline some of those perceived impediments, or get people to have a better understanding of why we go through certain processes. But as CFO, I was obviously focused on certain aspects of the department, but now as ED, it'll be a much broader focus, perhaps not as deep as I went into in the financial, but much broader, and want to work with our TxDOT team to understand the challenges that they face and then go about removing those challenges.
One of the things you had mentioned yesterday to the TxDOT leadership was how you started out in the trenches and worked your way up along the local levels. You made a very good kind of a storyline about that. I thought maybe you would share that, because in a way you are getting back to your roots a little bit.
Yeah, let's see if I can remember. So I started in the summer of 1985 as a construction inspector, and I remember working in the field office. The general sense in the field office was they didn't want to go into the district headquarter complex because those people were uptight, they were tense, they were way too quiet, wouldn't want to work there. So of course, 2 summers later, I worked at the district headquarter complex, and no one in the district headquarter complex wanted to go to the district admin building because those people were way too uptight, they were too quiet. There's no way I could ever work there. So I think over a Christmas break, I worked in the district headquarter administration building. The general sense there was, there is no way I could work in the Greer building. You know, those people in Austin, they're too uptight, it's too quiet. I've walked around, you don't hear anybody talking. So for the last 22 years, I've worked in the Greer building. People are really uptight. No, it's not true, but again, it comes back to perspective, and where you're at in an organization will lead you to believe or have different perceptions. And so I think it's always important to be aware of your perception, but then try and adjust it and change it so you're getting kind of a 360 viewpoint from others in the department, what they see the challenges are. Hopefully, oftentimes, it's going to be the same challenges that you perceive, but there's also going to be times where there are different and new ones, and oftentimes the answers to those challenges are going to come from the local level and the people that are dealing with them on a day-to-day basis.
Very good. James, you're obviously a well-known entity, respected professional around the Capitol, and we all know that you spend endless hours there during session and a considerable amount of time even now. To what do we owe that success, and how can you help the department continue its success with the legislature?
I've always thought it's fairly simple. One is to be open and honest, and as important is understand what your role is. And what I mean by that is we as department employees are not the policymakers. Some might say we are advisors or subject matter experts to the policymakers. And so when asked, I think it's important for us to offer multiple sides of an issue, because I've seen my role, whether it was finance division director, kind of advising the administration, or CFO advising the commission, is the role is to make sure that the policymakers make a fully informed decision. But again, we are not the policymakers, and that decision that is ultimately made may not be the same one that we would have chosen personally or professionally. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, because the policymakers have set the direction and the course, and our job is to then, set about implementing and putting that into action. And so I think at times it can be challenging when you're discussing issues with policymakers to maybe forget your role in that conversation and that process. But I think it's fairly simple. Be open and honest. Remember our role in the process, and then provide the information and make sure that they're able to make a fully informed decision when they do decide to act.
Well, kind of sticking on the theme of working with the legislature, the past 2 sessions, TxDOT has seen a considerable amount of success with the passage of Prop 1 and those dollars that have already been put into projects around the state in 2015, and most recently with the passage of Prop 7. Is there any concern in your mind as the state looks at different ways in which we go about addressing congestion, maintaining the system, et cetera? Is there any concern that lawmakers may have say, okay, we're done with transportation, let's go on to the next topic? Are you concerned about that, or do you think that there's some wiggle room to get more funding if it's so necessary going forward?
I'm not really concerned that transportation will be a forgotten issue. I think it's one of the state, government services that impacts all of us every day. Even people who may not own a car or drive, are getting goods and services delivered to them through the transportation network. So it's obviously broad and far-reaching. And I think, leadership, the legislature, and the public have all recently shown how important they feel transportation is by implementing and approving the funding mechanisms that you just mentioned. Obviously, this upcoming legislative session, TxDOT will be undergoing sunset review, and I'm certain there'll be a number of other bills dealing with transportation issues. If we focus just on transportation funding, I'm also really not overly concerned about that being forgotten either. As you mentioned, the department's been provided significant additional funding over the past few years, and I'm a believer that if we go out and execute and do our job well, putting that money to the most effective and appropriate use and doing it efficiently with our partners, that if and when the state finds ourselves in the position of needing additional transportation funds to deliver the transportation network we're being asked to deliver, I think the legislature, leadership, and the public have shown their willingness to step up and provide that funding when they're convinced and they know that it's needed.
So let's shift a little bit, maybe get into some TxDOT kind of cultural areas if we can. You've been at TxDOT for more than 30 years. We have a huge 100th anniversary next year in 2017. So basically, you've been with the department, if my math is right, about 30% of the time that the organization's existed.
Thanks for making me feel old.
So from somebody who's seen so much at TxDOT over time, what makes TxDOT such a special place? Why is it such a coveted organization in your mind?
I think it's the people, the history, and the mission. As I talked about, I guess starting with the mission, we impact everyone's life every day. And that is a significant job, and I think the department understands that and obviously takes it very seriously. The history of the department, the farm to market road system, getting the farmer out of the mud, is something that I think the employees today take great pride in what the people who preceded us were able to deliver to the state of Texas. And then the people, what makes it special to me is the people of TxDOT. As we went through earlier, whether it was the field office as a construction inspector, an area engineer office, the Greer Building, Riverside, district headquarter complex, what impressed me, even as a recent high school graduate, college student, was the dedication and professionalism that all levels of the department, each and every day, and the pride they took in their job and executing it, made an impression on me at a very young age. When I started back in 1985, I don't really know what my plans were, but it wasn't a thought in my mind that 30 years later, you and I'd be sitting on this stage. But the atmosphere, the camaraderie, the teamwork within TxDOT is what I think attracts and helps retain a lot of people. There used to be an old saying that if you got to TxDOT and we were able to keep you for 3 years, we had you for life. Because once you got into TxDOT, in 3 years you kind of got absorbed into that culture and understood the teamwork and the mission, you weren't going to want to leave. To me, that's what TxDOT is.
Very good, very good. You've only been on the job for a few days. Look, it's January 5th? You just assumed the position, but obviously...
I decided to give everybody the first day off.
Yeah.
January 1st.
That was very kind, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sure everybody appreciates it. But you've certainly been thinking about this over the holidays and of course during the interview process and the opportunity to lead such a wonderful group of people. Do you have any message for TxDOT employees who might either be here or might watch this video at some point in time. Message to the taxpayers, you're very much customer focused, which is great to see. And the contracting community is also with us here today. Any kind of message that you want to deliver as your tenure gets underway?
Yeah, I think to our customers, to taxpayers and the legislature, first and foremost is thank you. We appreciate the additional funding and the confidence shown in the department by implementing and approving those additional funding mechanisms, but we fully understand that comes with expectations. And so for TxDOT employees, let's get after it. And if there are impediments in our way that are slowing us down or maybe keeping us from being as efficient or as effective as possible, let's discuss them. Let's work on them, look at them together as a team, and let's go about fixing them and addressing them. To the contracting community, stating the obvious, we can't get it done without you. We can't do what the people of the state of Texas expect, demand, and deserve from us without our partnership with you and the MPOs and others. And so if there are impediments in our relationship with contractors, with MPOs and others, just like with our employees, we want to hear about those impediments and then go working together to try and solve and address those.
Very good. Before we wrap up, something that came up yesterday in the leadership meeting was
what happens in leadership meetings stays in leadership.
Yeah. Okay. Your desire to continue this safety culture at TxDOT as it's evolved over time, and we're going to hear from Gerald Wire a little bit later this morning about safety. Give us a sense as to why that continues to be such an important part of our mission and what we're focused on as leaders at TxDOT.
Well, I think there are many aspects to the safety culture, and one you just talked about is our employees. And I think it gets back to the culture of TxDOT. And many of you have heard or are familiar with the TxDOT family. And working closely, and a number of our employees are in a very dangerous position, out on the roadway, without barriers, very close to traffic, driving 60 miles per hour and plus. But as that TxDOT family, it's our responsibility to make sure they have the training, the tools, and everything necessary so they can do their job and do it safely. And much like if you have children that are getting ready to start driving on their own, you're going to remind them of the things they should and should not be doing. And so we want that culture within TxDOT as well. Safety is job one. But safety is not just for our internal employees, it's, again, for our customers, as Chairman Lewis mentioned. And if you look at I think it's the top 5 causes of fatal accidents, what struck me is that I believe 4 of them are what I would say driver behavior. Distracted driving, driving under the influence, different things. There's the one was head-on collisions that I would say is closely related to infrastructure. Are there ways that we can address the infrastructure issue? Maybe it's 2-lane roads with wider shoulders on them. Maybe it's ensuring that those 2-lane roads have rumble strips on the center line, because and it's going to be something that's untold. When you save a life, it doesn't necessarily get reported. How do you know that a life was saved? But I think the experience and looking at other areas, it's a simple equation. We know we're going to save lives by making improvements to the infrastructure. And then on our driver awareness campaigns, we need to keep that message, don't text and drive, don't drink and drive. All of those driver awareness campaigns, we need to keep beating that drum just like we would with family members. We know what the right thing to do is when we get behind the wheel. Let's make sure that we do it each and every day so we get safely to our destination and, importantly, get back home to our family safely.
And that's one of the things that Commissioner Mosley is looking at very closely in his safety work is how do we address it not only from the infrastructure side, but also the public awareness side. So we'll be looking for more from him in the coming months. I just wanted to thank you so much for taking the time and being up here, and congratulations to you. We all look forward to working with you and helping ensure your success and that of the department. And let's have a great forum. Thanks very much, James.
Thank you.